Hello, all you spry tubers, twitchers, and pod people out there. Welcome to the Could You Do It Better podcast, where director, artist, and the behind-the-scenes awesomeness known as Sesh, and the writing and directing sensation known as Maria, discuss popular television shows and movies and answer the always controversial question of, could you do it better? Today, we will be discussing Season 2, Episode 4 of Ryan Condal's House of the Dragon television series based upon George R.R. Martin's novel, Fire and Blood. And as for me, I'm Jonathan the Intern, and unlike our two experts, have no industry experience whatsoever. In other words, I'm much like Aegon. My opinions are met with silence and ignored by my colleagues. I'm told by family members that I offer nothing to the world and should never have been born. And if I were to ever go to war, I'd be lit on fire and shot out of the sky by my own troops because, man, that guy sucks. And now to Sesh and Maria. Woo!
Cheers! All right.
We're back this week, guys. Who knew this was going to happen?
Surprise!
It was random. But we flipped the coin to your Witcher, and the Witcher lost. So again, season 2, episode 4 of the House of the Dragon TV series is what we will be recapping today. And so this episode will contain spoilers throughout. So if you haven't watched this episode and don't want to hear spoilers before you do, please feel free to put us on mute as you watch the episode, then rewatch our show afterwards, because that's how you double those view counts. And now, on to the recap as mandated by our legal department. We begin with Daemon slowly walking towards a Valyrian-speaking Millie Alcock, perched on the Iron Throne. Unable to understand her, Daemon interprets that to mean she is the Zoroastrian demon Ahriman, and he's Duncan MacLeod, the Highlander, and there can be only one, slicing off her head for the quickening. I am immortal! I have inside me blood of kings! And much like the Highlander series, Daemon is mocked by Ahriman because that's no way to kill a demon, and is woken up from his visions to find himself covered in blood. Thankfully, though, in this show, it wasn't the blood of a character we actually care about. Daemon was simply on his period and bled through. Simon Strong tells Daemon that Criston Cole has taken over 2 castles and has tripled his army and is on his way to Harrenhal. Daemon counters by meeting Oscar Tully, child grandson of the ruler of the Riverlands, and telling him to suffocate his grandfather with a pillow. Yep. Unfortunately, Oscar loves his grandpa, so on to plan B. Glad Rhaenyra is refusing to take military action in favor of Daemon's political prowess because, man, wow, riveting. Meanwhile, Rhaenys hits on Alan in front of Corlys because it's implied that Alan is Corlys' bastard son. And if you understand that reasoning, you've clearly watched too much Game of Thrones. Over to Alicent living her best life, breaking her engagement present to Viserys and chugging abortion tea. You go, girl! To Rhaenyra's small council, which is completely falling apart because they have absolutely no leadership, guidance, orders, or army, and their queen has disappeared without any word. Corlys and Rhaenys use their influence to hold things together, but right now they're trying to win a basketball game while only fielding one player. Over to Aegon's small council, where he has shown himself to be woefully inadequate at military leadership as well, and is continually iced out of military decisions much to his dismay. Aemon, however, has risen up and has taken the role of Commander General, executing what is quite possibly the first intelligence strategy on this show to isolate Dragonstone, by cutting off the coasts and by growing a bordering army, while Daemon fumbles with a decrepit castle that can't be properly defended. Cheers! Bravo, Aemon! Good job! Larys, sensing that 2 feet were missing at the meeting, goes to check on Alicent, who didn't even bother to clean up after the previous night's sexcapade, leaving her Plan B wrapper in full sight on the table. Larys and her have a late-night college talk on the quad about indulgences, history books, and ill-defined intentions, culminating in Alicent saying, "Intention dies with you, and after that, whatever is simply is." Deep, man. Deep. Back to Harrenhal, where Daemon is dream stalking, where he officially meets the resident witch, Alice Rivers, who tells him the castle is cursed due to being built on a sacred weirwood burial ground, and his bed is made of their bodies, hence the vivid nightmares. She then reminds him of what Rhaenyra told him in their fight, and gave him some blood wine to make him feel better. Daemon, for some reason, imbibes it, and I don't think it helped, because the next day Daemon was stoned out of his gourd, deep on hallucinogens while speaking to the Brackens to get his army, imagining the dead Laena as his cupbearer. But back to King's Landing, where Alicent demeans and denigrates Aegon for no reason whatsoever, telling him the exact same thing Otto told him 2 episodes ago, that he's unfit to be king, that he's not even half the king Viserys was, that they sacrificed a lot just to get him on the throne, and that he's good for quite literally nothing. Man, she be tripping. Seems like Alicent should have read the drug information on her moon tea ahead of time, as it's clearly marked there that it aborts fetuses, not teenagers. Common mistake. Common mistake, parents. You gotta read the drug info. Meanwhile, Kristen's military plan to attack Rook's Rest in broad daylight because it'd catch them off guard. Sir Gawain questions Kristen's idiocy, but yes, he is in fact an idiot. To Rhaenyra's council, where look what the cat dragged in. It's Rhaenyra! Jace, of all people, is the one putting her feet to the coals, calling her an absolute moron for heading to King's Landing to learn what everyone already knew, that she either win her claim to the throne through battle or die. Rhaenyra responds by saying some view her caution as weakness, and she will fly into battle alone with no backup or support to defend Rook's Rest. Jace tells her that's the dumbest plan he's ever heard, because if she dies, so do all of them, and says he'll do it instead. Rhaenyra says no, only for Rhaenys to say, "No, I am Spartacus." And as we well know, you just have to agree at that point. Flashback to King's Landing, where Aegon smashes his wine glass and gets ready to ride his dragon into battle. A medley of shots between camps as Rhaenyra talks to Jace in a voiceover about the log line to Game of Thrones that her dad told her. And now, what we've all been waiting for, to the battle for Rook's Rest start in earnest. Archers are holding Cole's army at bay, and Rhaenys swoops in to burn swaths of the enemy. But this is apparently all according to Cole's plan, because he has Aemon riding Vhagar on wait to ambush. But before they have a chance to spring their questionable trap, in flies Aegon on Sunfire, who directly intercepts Rhaenys. A Dracarys is fired, but Rhaenys and Meleys dodge, dip, and undercut, slashing Sunfire's belly. Sunfire goes down like a World War II Zero, but Aegon just barely pulls out of the dive. Rhaenys and Meleys attack a distressed Sunfire's wing, but with Rhaenys preoccupied, into the battle enters Aemon and Vhagar. It's 2-on-1 now. Unfortunately for Aemon, though, he's the one, as Aemon proceeds to Dracarys him and downs him in Sunfire. Man, that's going to make for some awkward family dinner conversation. Rhaenys straps herself in and screams, "This is Sparta!" in Valyrian, going on the offensive. She attacks the much larger Vhagar, but Vhagar catches Meleys in her claw. The two dragons battle in a helical fire tornado, dropping to the ground as they approach. Meleys scratches Vhagar's stomach and pulls free, as Vhagar slams into the ground, knocking Criston Cole unconscious. Rhaenys turns around to do a final attack run, but where are Aemon and Vhagar? They're not on the ground. It's just so smoky and hard to see, and chomp! Vhagar uses the castle for cover, rises up and snatches Meleys in her throat, squeezing the life out of her. Rhaenys knows it's over and free dives on her back into the keep, dragon crashing down on her. That's officially 3 kills now for Aemon in this series, 0 for anyone else if you're keeping track. Sir Criston wakes up from what sounds like a punctured lung to find out they won the battle and makes the long trek to see what happened to Aegon. Episode ends with Criston seeing Aegon in a wily coyote hole in the ground and Aemon picking up and taking Aegon's dagger of destiny. This episode, wow, what a recap. This episode is brought to you by Phlebotomal Tinctures and Tonics. Tired of Big Pharma pushing their drugs on you? Fed up by late-night medical infomercial pills that don't perform as advertised and have nasty side effects? Frustrated that some dork in a white jacket is telling you you're past your prescription limit, or that experimental hallucinogenic drugs sold by that guy in the alley behind the Taco Bell are not covered by your medical insurance? Well, here at Phlebotomal Tinctures and Tonics, we sell a wide array of natural homeopathic products and remedies to, we legally can't say cure, your illness. And bonus, they never require FDA approval for distribution. So whether you need some virile boar blood wine for your sleepwalking night terrors brewed by a licensed witch, or you need an emergency matcha tea steeped with our special blend of crushed up Plan B and cod liver oil, here to cleanse both your bowels and uterus alike of foul substances, Phlebotomal Tinctures and Tonics is always just a click away. That's Phlebotomal Tinctures and Tonics, where we don't sell you snake oil unless you really think you need it. Back to you, Sesh and Maria.
I don't know about snake oil, but I could use some Taco Bell. Thank you for that. That was great.
Fantastic for you. Thank you very much.
Phlebotomal Tinctures and Tonic. Maria uses them. You heard it here yourself.
You can tell with her skin.
That's that boar blood body wash.
Yes.
Yeah.
Natural boar blood.
Now that you've shared all my beauty secrets, I guess we could go on to the first question of the evening. If you were Rhaenyra coming back to see what Cole has been up to, what would be the next military decision you would make? Do you think you would have made a better decision than her? Sesh, do you want to get us started?
Yeah, and yeah, I would have. She needed more updates and more time thinking. I would have tried to predict where they were going next and have a trap and, oh wait, that was actually good but obvious plan. Yeah, I felt like they should have at least thought harder on why they were going for this small castle. Aegon's team mentioned cutting them off by land, but you know, dragons. So you got to think that there's another reason. Like really all Rhaenyra had to do was pull a Cuban Missile Crisis. And I mean that by, like, you know, you place some dragons in areas simply as a deterrent, a blockade, and you wait to engage until like a specific line is crossed, always pulling back until the very last minute. Which is something she could have instructed to be done before making her little trip to King's Landing. She could have had them doing rotations on their patrols, so as soon as one of them doesn't check in, they would know to send over at least one other dragon to see why. But that would have required Rhaenyra being present in the war room at least long enough to delegate anything during war times. I do respect, though, that she wanted to be absolutely positive that there is no chance of peace, but like she should have been doing more at the same time. For Rook's Rest, she literally said how it looks like they're tempting her to go get them. Then she decides to go get them? Question mark? Like what are you doing there? So without any discussions about how obviously it's a ploy, thankfully, but also sadly, she sends the best person for the job. I completely agree that it should have been Rhaenys, but I would have sent more than just one dragon. Rhaenys had no reason to be sent alone.
Yeah, very good points. I mean, if I were her, I would have spent time learning military strategy with my cabinet of peoples for a while before this, but time being of the essence, I would have at least listened to the round table, hearing their concerns before making a quick decision. I mean, she said herself that she has inherited peace from her dad. She never learned what war is. I would have most likely found other small fiefdoms to take in order to strengthen my numbers instead of going for his. I would also see what Daemon needs over at Harrenhal, since that is a key strategic area. I think if I were in Rhaenyra's shoes, I probably would get a miniature kingdom made for me, so I can where I stand just like good old Dad used to. Like, what would Dad do? Okay, I definitely wouldn't show my teeth yet until I know I have more fortified armies. I would also talk to my cabinet about overall strategy in the long game before making a first move. I don't think reactionary fighting is going to help me win a war, much less a battle.
Yeah, use miniatures.
Yeah.
Yeah. Visualize it.
Exactly.
Considering that if I'm Rhaenyra, not only have I not made a single military decision in 3 months, but that I have been MIA for a truly idiotic reason, and as such am not up to date on the current situation, the first thing I do, as Maria said, is actually listen to my small council and their insights instead of commanding them to follow the first thing that pops into my mind, despite everyone saying how bad an idea it is. From there, I'd work on the most likely list of scenarios for what Cole and his army are trying to accomplish. And you'd come to the conclusion that either 1, Cole knows that you have offered no resistance to his attacks and are basically leaderless, has decided to recklessly attack in broad daylight because he either believes you will do nothing about it, or he's simply a moron. Or 2, Cole has planned such a high visibility act because he's setting a trap to get you to react rashly and attempt to either injure your dragons, hurt your reputation by getting you to kill your own people with dragons, or to destroy your fleet. Or 3, distracting you with this battle on your doorstep to either break your oppressive blockade with dragons as your support will be spread thin, or open up Dragonstone to being flanked from the back by dragons and boats from the east. Or 4, it could be Cole planning a risky but optimistic splitting of his army to simultaneously attack Rook's Rest while sending the rest on a surprise attack on Harrenhal to surround Daemon and perhaps trap or kill him and his dragon.
Smart.
So, okay, we have 4 scenarios, and we break them down one by one. First, let's assume Cole is just an impulsive, egotistical moron who has no military plan other than to try and embarrass Rhaenyra. Now, this actually tracks. And in this case, using a dragon to defend from the sea and having another dragon attack from the back, giving them no ability for escape or cover, would annihilate them. Now, let's assume, instead, that it's a trap to get you attacked with dragons. Well, in that case, you need to scout the area well and try to find out what the ambush mechanism is. Is it a dragon? Is it a bunch of scorpions? Is it prisoners from loyal houses to you? Is it a fleet from King's Landing? Well, once you believe you've determined what the threat is, get a dragon rider to Harrenhal immediately to appraise Daemon of the situation. Send out one of your own dragons as bait with the purpose of drawing out their threat, then ambush from the west with Daemon and the other dragon rider, be it Bela or Jace, to make it 3-on-1. Or 4-on-2 if both Aemond and Aegon's dragons are there. Circle them and squash them. All right, so what about the third scenario, where this is a distraction to break the blockade or flank Dragonstone for an attack? Well, you're going to want at least one dragon as lookout to the east, and Corlys's fleet aware and vigilant, maybe spreading out a little wider to have eyes on a possible attacking fleet from Essos, or a fleet attacking from King's Landing, or a dragon attack from sea, so you have as much time as possible to fortify Dragonstone or your blockade defensively. And finally, if this is actually an ambitious attempt to ambush and trap Daemon at Harrenhal, you want to get word to him that an ambush may be imminent, to give a quick scout to see whether an army or dragons may be approaching Harrenhal, and to return to Rook's Rest to help defensively crush half of Cole's army there if that's the case. Okay, so now we have those scenarios. Let's take them all together and combine them. And so what should Rhaenyra have done? Well, she should have Jace scout the eastern seas and make sure Corlys and his fleet are vigilant for an eastern attack. She should also immediately dispatch a dragon rider to Harrenhal, probably Bela, to get and retrieve Daemon for the flank attack ambush of Cole's army on Rook's Rest from the west. Then you have Rhaenys, who's your strongest and smartest dragon rider, protect Rook's Rest from sea, attempting to draw out whatever trap they have without getting into a lethal position, and then regrouping once you escape to help surround that threat with the dragon riders from the east or west as ambush. Whichever one is available based off of how Cole's attack actually pans out. And if Rhaenyra would have done that, she would have absolutely obliterated Cole's army and likely brought down both Aemond and Aegon and their dragons in one fell swoop. In this case, with a 4-on-2 dragon fight advantage. That's war over immediately. And all she had to do was sit down and think through, well, what are the possibilities? Instead of just going ahead and just saying the first thing that jumps into her mind, which is, let's send one person into battle, straightforward. Charge.
Wow. That was very solid.
Like she knew.
Yeah. I definitely used your miniature approach first to figure it all out and go from there. Yes.
Oh man.
So our next question of the night is Cole's military strategy mind-blowing genius or misstep after misstep? Jonathan, you want to start us off?
Oh, I am continuing. Excellent. Oh, too much talking this first half of the episode, that's for sure. It was better than most of his plans, but it was extremely reckless and overly reliant on lucking into Rhaenyra making a misstep. I mean, his plan was to ambush Rhaenyra or one of her dragons for a giant victory, as it would not only kill one of her highest generals, but it would also reduce her dragon advantage from 5-2 to 4-2. And, that does make sense in theory, considering you have the biggest dragon and were able to somehow hide it in a place for effective ambush that would catch Rhaenyra by surprise. But here's the thing. What if Rhaenyra doesn't send a single dragon, but sends 3 of them or 4 of them to surround you, give you no escape, and just completely obliterate you? Then you just lost your biggest dragon, your army, your Lord Commander in hand, your top general, dragon rider, and brother to the king, and the Queen Dowager's brother in one fell swoop. In that case, you just lost the entire war in a single day for a super risky, not well thought out strategy. Your best case scenario is to hope Rhaenyra won't adequately defend or strategize and to cut off Dragonstone's fleet from the mainland. And while that did indeed happen, betting your entire war on that is just such a reckless decision, and so much can go wrong. And by the way, even though what happened was actually a best case scenario for Cole, this still resulted in trading a dragon and a king for a dragon and a general. And that's simply not a good trade. As now you're down from a 5 dragon to 2 disadvantage to a 4 dragon to 1 disadvantage. And you lost your king.
In a coma, I guess he's around.
Yeah. Oh man, I feel the same in so many ways. I hate this guy. And I was yelling at the TV saying the same thing as Allison's brother Gwen or Gawain. Did you forget the field with the dragon we were just in? But I will say this was not entirely a terrible plan. Hiding a dragon is a good play. I can believe that it traveled at night and of course was able to get there quickly. So a real surprise. It didn't feel like one of those teleporting dragons. The bad parts are the secrecy parts. That was a pretty big misstep, turns out, for a lot of reasons. Secrecy from the soldiers, even the more important ones. Secrecy from the council, ? I think so. They didn't know. And especially the king, all just so he can, surprise everyone with competency? I hate this guy. The idea that bait Rhaenyra to use dragons would make more sense if we saw more scorpions present. But it's sort of a stupid play anyways, since Rhaenyra's side, as you pointed out, has more dragons than they do. So it easily could have gone completely wrong. Cole was very lucky that they decided to send only one dragon. I think a better move would have been to fight Daemon, where they know there's only one dragon around, which is probably further away from the other 4 dragons also. I mean, we know it is. Like Cole decided to poke the hive by being close to where almost all the dragons were stationed. I do like that we see Cole piece by piece realizing what a huge mistake he made. That was absolutely not worth it in the end. And it's arguable how much of the king's death was really his fault, but there was nothing keeping Rhaenyra from sending 2 or 3 dragons. So they easily could have been down Aegon's dragon with that, which even Cole isn't going to send the king into battle. So they effectively have one fighting dragon, just Aegon's. This was super risky. Tactically, you would want to do everything possible so that Aemon's dragon is the only one fighting in one-on-one combat.
Yep.
I mean, I agree with what both of you guys are saying. You know, Cole seems to have the attitude that he is a genius, but I mean, he spent most of his time in the castle. He hasn't really been trained to be a military leader. I'm not sure why he also doesn't seem to take much advice from anyone. Like, sure, he may think Alicent's brother is a jerk, so why not find a wise elder who has seen more to offer him counsel? He isn't even technically supposed to be leading an army as Hand to the King. So the fact that he isn't even doing his job, but rather single-handedly setting traps and waging battles without a clear sense of ethics is odd. Like, where is everybody else? How is he not being challenged by elders to heed their wisdom? He is, I don't know, he's fueled by revenge and rage, and no one seems to notice because everyone else is focused on their own insecurities and problems. So I would say misstep after misstep, definitely. Sure, he wins some, but beating a few places that are weaker than you is not a badge of honor and genius.
Well said. Well,
Very well said.
Thank you. Phew. All right. Our question of the evening is, do you think Alicent's response to her son was more fueled by the moon tea than anything, or her lashing out at him because she knows she made a major error putting him on the throne? Sesh, you want to get us started with this one?
Yeah, I think both and projection. Like we've talked about how she's been ignored at the table and her entire life has been lacking agency. So the first thought that popped in my head when Aegon was complaining about how he's been treated was Alicent thinking, welcome to the club. Honestly, it was some good advice. It needed to be sugar-coated because he's such a little pathetic dude bro of little character, I mean. But what we do know is that this was not said out of love. She definitely felt that sting of what a stupid mistake she made starting this war by seeing this king whine. And just knowing that nobody in their right mind would have said that this Aegon will unite anyone. It's so obvious that she is mad at herself here, while also going through a physically tough time of what the moon tea is doing. I would say difficult emotionally too, but I don't get the sense that she would want a child with Cole, even if she could. Again, their relationship is built on hating Rhaenyra and the taboo of it all. She doesn't need more children she doesn't love. I think she knows that. I am interested to see the guilt she has next episode and if we'll see any motherly kindness out of it. But I'm also curious to see how poorly she may react, and none of that.
Yeah, Alicent is done. She's lost the last bit of what she thought was doing good she was holding on to. That makes sense.
Yep,
Now,
yep.
any illusion she may have felt about Aegon one day becoming king he was allegedly meant to be is gone. She doesn't have anything to fuel her to keep up appearances anymore, and just tells Aegon exactly what's on her mind. She doesn't seem to think of him as a son more a pawn, which is in line with how she's been treated. Generational trauma at its finest. What I wonder is, did she give any thought to how he would respond? I think she just really didn't care. I think she still cares in as much as how it's going to affect the realm, but she needed a little momcation before having that conversation.
Yeah.
Spa
You needed a spa day.
Yeah. She forgot to take her bath that day. That's the problem. She takes
Oh,
it
yeah.
once an episode, and that didn't happen. Oh, look.
Needed a couple more phlebotomal tinctures and tonics. You know, I think you guys are right on the footsteps of basically what I'm going to say, but I do have a slightly different viewpoint there. And I think it's more that Alicent sees him for what he truly is, a fraud and a failure, something that in her heart she's always known. But to react as cruelly and viciously as she did, to deprecate her son, it signifies a different reason entirely for her doing so. And in my opinion, it's her seeing herself as a fraud and failure and weak and undeserving of her own title. When people lash out at someone unexpectedly, their words tend to be very important because generally they're projecting their own issues. You know, she stole the title of queen from Rhaenyra by deviously seducing Rhaenyra's dad. It wasn't earned. She put Aegon on the throne by misinterpreting Viserys' wishes. She's the one who has fractured the kingdom in peace by her own actions. She's guilty for using broken and jaded emo boy Kristen Cole as her sex toy, the very crime she castigated Rhaenyra for. And so she takes it out on her son because she sees her weakness and unworthiness in him. She wants to be punished, so she punishes herself through him. And it has led to her child basically killing himself. You know, it's heartbreaking, really, or at least it would be if Aegon didn't spend the entire season one as a psychopath, but get that part. But it's what happens in a lot of cases where parents act like this. You know, the truth is that if you constantly are putting your own problems on your kid, they're going to suffer from some severe issues as they get older, trying to deal with not only the stuff they're going through, but the stuff that you went through as well. And it is that generational trauma, as you were talking about. It can be definitely real.
Very sad.
Yeah. She's definitely realizing she's the baddie.
So sad.
Yeah.
Anyway, our next question is.
I think you might need some phlebotomal tinctures. Can we put that number here one more time for the viewers at home?
We're just making fun of the villain of the show. Come on.
Okay, so our next question of the evening is, what type of character do you think they are trying to build with Rhaenyra? Weak or strong? Jonathan, you want to get started?
Yeah, you know, I actually think that this is a really, really, really tough question because I'm just not entirely sure. You know, had they not written in the first season that she was strong and showing political leadership and potential, you know, I'd say they're writing her as a weak, indecisive, and ineffective leader, her true father's daughter. But since they did, it's just extremely hard to gauge. Hearing the showrunner's comments, it's almost like they think she's showing wisdom and true leadership by being patient and getting all the facts and trying to avoid war. But in reality, she's been a horrendous leader who doesn't communicate well, if at all, who takes impetuous and reckless actions, who takes forever to make a decision so she can get all of the so-called facts, even if those facts are completely obvious. But for all that time spent, she doesn't actually think through her decisions logically or rationally and doesn't use her advisors effectively. So is she a strong character with deep flaws? Or is she a weak and feckless character who is undeserving of the power she commands? I want to say it's the latter, despite the showrunners probably opting for the former while saying, what major flaws?
Feckless.
Yeah. Feckless. That was coming to my mind too, Feckless, like how she was in the first season. I think they're trying to make her, seem justified in her actions, fair and in the right. They really don't highlight her shortcomings anymore, but they're there if you're looking at them. I would say they're painting her in a very particular way that they really failed to do last season and mostly failed to do this season. I feel like they've successfully made her hesitant or reluctant. As frustrating as it is, they've definitely made her the good guy in all of this, but maybe this isn't unintentional. But it's very much in the same way like Viserys was a good guy, good king. There were some deep flaws there that really spiraled and made many little things worse over time. But, good guy. I'm really hoping from here out she realizes she needs to be present, tactical, and unwavering with her forces during this time. Rhaenys was a big loss for her, and she should blame herself for it. She refused to let her son go. Why? Because she knew it would be dangerous deep down. But she sent Rhaenys alone. I'm hoping she reaches out to Daemon because I think now she would be more willing to use him and risk him. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're trying to build, like you say, a character who represents fairness and strength on paper, but her decision-making in reality seems just as ego-driven as the other characters. She wants to prove she is a worthy fighter in the name of protecting the realm from an unknown danger. Not just so she can be queen, but I think her own actions don't really show how she is above the others. I think they want to show her as the ultimate good guy of this series, but she lacks a lot of wisdom and good decision making that would make us cheer for her. Like, I think that when you have strong characters that you cheer for, they usually have some kind of moral code that they live by, or ethical code. It doesn't have to be like the best, but they live by it. They're strong in it. And I don't see that from either of them.
Mm-hmm.
There's what are we believing in? Why are we cheering just because we bit the knee to like the great grandfather? There's no real other reason. Yeah.
All I know is she should have sent her 3-year-old out on a dragon because that 3-year-old would have messed some people up. That is for sure.
That would have been a surprise attack for sure.
Okay. Our next question of the evening is, the showrunner mentions that Daemon is going through a spiritual awakening, having visions of murdering his niece/wife/queen. Do his experiences seem empowering to you? Jonathan, you want to get us started?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah, empowering. That's certainly one word for it. Yeah. In short, the answer is no. But a bit longer, and I think it's that his lack of sleep, comfort, and self-adulation is causing the conscience he long locked away in that little teeny tiny cabinet back there. It's bleeding out and releasing some of his inner demons. Mm-hmm. And lack of sleep can do a number on you, especially when you carry with you massive compartmentalized guilt. And it's many things, but it's not empowering. What it is letting the chickens come home to roost and finding out that who you really are isn't that carefully coiffed figure you see with those dull, sunken eyes staring back at you in the mirror. It's that hideous figure in the painting you store in your attic. And a hedonist can only stay awake for so long before his nightmares become reality.
That's pretty good.
Very good.
Yeah, I think his experiences seem to mirror that what the witch that backstabbed Daenerys and Got did to her. I don't know why he would trust a witch in his midst, especially when he doesn't know where he is half the time. And it seems like he wants to be led by the nose because he's starting to see visions of what he really wants. That sounds like the opposite of a spiritual awakening to me. He's walking right into this mysterious witch's hands and will no doubt end up doing her bidding unknowingly because he doesn't have a strong enough backbone to do otherwise when his true fealty is to himself.
Yeah, he might birth his own shadow monster.
I mean, I don't agree with the shadow monster, but yeah, I think I agree. Like, it feels like his spiritual side is going to be demonic if he's going through with an awakening. I think we will see him feeling emboldened to rule and maybe take more, than what people expect for him to take. I actually really like the dreams/visions we're seeing here. Everything about them is actually great. I would be, and it would be really great on, a consistent character. Because these visions are clearly somebody having a crisis of character who is feeling guilt. Sorry, dog here. I'm just getting my hopes up because I don't see that we're going to get a redemption out of him. Betrayal, yeah. Redemption because of his guilt, no. I doubt it. It would be great if we did. And then if we got a consistent Damon who wants to make amends for everything in his life. But I get the sense that this spiritual awakening we're getting here is going to be on the dark side.
Your dog sounds like he has some inner demons that he
He
wants.
does. He is a chihuahua, so he is a tiny demon. A little house demon.
So overall, what to you made this show more engaging than previous episodes, assuming you were more engaged? Sesh, you want to get us started?
Yeah, I was engaged this episode. Every scene actually felt like it did something, and there was a ton of little things happening that said so much. Like when Aegon's knights leave the room, or I should say attempt to leave the room, because they bump into each other and they clang. That was super funny, and in a second it shows how inept they are. I laughed out loud. I lolled. The blood on Damon's hand when he wakes from the dream, that was great. And the highlight of the whole episode, we actually saw a battle. And this time it was correct for them to talk about it and then show it in the same episode. The tension and lead up was not a letdown for once. They showed a battle, and this was a highlight of the whole show. We finally saw a dragon fight. Like, this episode is what we should have had, what we deserved by episode 3 or 4 of season 1. I really enjoyed the whole battle. The dragon parts were great, even if the human parts were lacking at times. They still had their moments. The devastation after was great. Like, I loved Cole reaching out to the soldier's shoulder, tongue twister, and it being nothing but burn bones left. Another tongue twister. And my girl, my favorite character in this show, rest in peace, Rhaenys. As much as I am sad she's gone, and as much as it was depressingly obvious she was a goner as soon as she volunteered, which took away the shock of the death, which is something, Game of Thrones is known for, still, she was a champion. Her going to battle and choosing to fight instead of flee more than once added to how badass she was, and the absolutely badass way she went out of this world.
Yeah, I mean, so much was engaging in this episode, as you said, just so much. I mean, starting from the top, you had a clean, coherent, and tight storyline that actually hit its proper points in each scene. Pacing was perfectly driven throughout. There were no random scenes or cuts outside of the Rhaenys and Alan one drawing you out of the episode, or barely their introductions of new characters that don't fit into the storyline. You had characters who actually reacted to situations in rational and logical manners. Like you said, Sesh, it made you think, wow, I can definitely see this character acting like this when forced into this situation. And perhaps most importantly, you actually not only built up to something major this episode, but you actually delivered on it in spades. Go figure. And that's on top of the good directing, editing, and scoring. The episode was as engaging as good Game of Thrones, in my opinion. Why it took the series 14 episodes to get to engaging the audience, I have no idea. But this was such a 180 from last episode. I'm in pretty much complete shock right now because I did not see this coming. I was not expecting an episode that I could even remotely consider good. And here we are. So unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with both of you. For me, it was not knowing what was going to happen next. In a lot of instances, there was more mystery to each scene instead of being told what is going to happen. I felt like I was experiencing the events with the characters. There was better setup and payoff. The only part, that kind of took me out of things was how repetitive highlighting the Alan Hall thing was. Like you said, as a person of note, it was just getting irritating. Like, okay. They also set up Rhaenys' demise pretty obviously, like you said, based off of Rhaenyra's reaction. I liked seeing Aegon react to his mom's goading without any other character telling me what he's about to do. It was refreshing for the series. There was finally a battle scene, which lends itself to what ifs and excitement, and they actually delivered, like you said. So, yay!
Yeah, great point about the Aegon scene. Every single other time, there'd be some other character just jumping in saying, well, Aegon's flying into war now. And then cut to Aegon getting ready to fly into war. So, yes, well done. Well done.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, I feel like there's a payoff for knowing who this other character is now. Like, oh, he's a bastard. Why didn't they say that 4 episodes ago? But thanks, finally. Payoff.
Well, you figure you just repeat that scene 6, 7 times, and eventually you're like, well, I guess this character is important.
That's why he's important. Finally.
All
Could
right,
have been his intro, seriously.
we're down to ratings, and would you continue watching? Sesh, get us.
I always feel cautious, so I always want to say my ratings are for this show and this show alone. Please don't compare my 5s or 10s with other shows' 5s or 10s, or 8 here or 9 or whatever. An 8 here isn't the same as an 8 in The Witcher, okay? I can't confidently say that yet. I must say, with this show, and it's different scale, even especially when it's positive. I just don't trust myself. But so for this show, for this episode, I'm giving it an 8, which feels like I have to retroactively retract 2 points from all previous episodes of the season. So I'll do that. The mistakes in this episode were mostly in the characters' hands as their own mistakes in believable ways rather than any suspension of disbelief of who those characters actually were. Which has been demanded of us from the audience often. The only real filmmaking flaw I felt that could have been better by being more impactful was Rhaenys not having an obvious incoming death, just so we would have felt more shock, like the good old Game of Thrones vibes, I have said this before with this show, sadly, but I will say it again, and I will hope for the best. And I will hope that they keep on keeping on. If they don't regress and they stick to the things they highlighted for the character moments in this episode, the rest of the season will be great. And I would even look forward to a season 3.
Whoa.
They just gotta keep following this one episode.
I've said it before.
Yeah.
So I don't have high hopes. But there is hope. They almost give me hope.
I mean, after this episode, I would continue watching even if I didn't have to in order to do this podcast.
Wow.
Wow.
It showed more promise than I thought it would, and I feel like it deserves a 7 or an 8 this time. I hope they can continue, like you said, on this trajectory, because I was enjoying feeling drawn into the show and wondering what was going to happen next.
If you remember me listening audience out there, viewing audience out there, I've been a bit down on this series. Way down. Way down.
Cut to last episode's rage.
In fact, on this very show last week, I called the previous episode the worst in the entire franchise. I deeply questioned why I was even still watching the show and said that my hope for something, anything from the show had completely run dry, that I was done, that I might not be back, except I'm forced to by legal contract. Well, you know what? Credit where credit is due. This episode was a phenomenal one. Pretty much every single complaint and issue that I've had with this show and that I've spoken on throughout the many episodes before was actually fixed in this episode. The story had actual meaning and was well written. The characters acted realistically and drew you in. The stakes, yes, there were stakes, and they felt real. And the episode built throughout and delivered a great battle and climax, something that we hadn't seen in the previous 13 episodes. Maybe the dragon flight sequence with it's so hard to remember, Aemon and Luke. You know, that didn't even come close to this episode. You know, it's just amazing because this episode here is what I was hoping for when House of the Dragon was announced. And it was just masterfully done. Like, this is what I'm like, okay, fine, they're making a prequel. Prequels generally aren't as good as the original. But you know what? Game of Thrones had a good amount of flaws. Like, maybe this will fix some of those flaws. And instead, it was almost the opposite, where it took every flawed thing from Game of Thrones and made a series about it. Well, cutting out all the things that made it good. So I got to say, bravo, round of applause to T. McKell, who was the writer on this episode, director Alan Taylor, who is the director of this episode. You guys hit this one out of the park. I rate this episode an 8.5 out of 10, or a very solid A-. I loved it, and best episode of the series as far as I'm concerned. As everybody said, more like this one, please, more like this one. And if people are asking why did I rate it an 8.5 out of 10 instead of a 9.5 or a 10 out of 10, because I've said this was a wonderfully done episode. It was great. It's a fair question. Unlike Sesh, I keep my rating episodes consistent for all shows.
You trust yourself, huh?
Well, the reason I give it an 8.5 instead of a 9.5 or a 10 is because of all of the previous issues with the show. Like, you don't have those strong characters and that strong dialogue that really raises you up to that 9.5 out of 10. You know, if you look at the best episodes from Game of Thrones, you do have a Tywin or an Olenna or a Tyrion coming in. You have genuine intrigue, you know, going on, and you had some masterful scenes as well. And if you go to other shows like The Watchmen, which I rated very, very highly, like, that was just so tight, the scripts, so incredibly tight that you know, that's what raises it. And when I say, oh, this is a 10 out of 10 or a 9.5 out of 10, I mean it. I mean, this is an episode that's going to stand on its own. At the end of the season or series, you're going to look at it and say, this episode, this was the best one out there, and it stands strongly against any other episode from any other show. For this show, yes, this was the best episode of the show by far that we have seen. It's not even close. But overall, 8.5 out of 10. I think if I were to use Sesh's scale, I'd be saying clear 10 because I don't see another episode possibly reaching this based off of the first 13. But hey, I was surprised by this one. Maybe we'll go on a roll here.
Happy surprises? Question mark.
Yeah. What about that? We had a happy episode for the people.
Well, happy. I'm looking forward to characters actually having flawlessly smart plans and then things just going awry. That's when I'm going to really be excited and give us some good ratings.
You know, this is what I was talking about to Maria earlier, where I'm like, this is a show about what happens when two really dumb people fight. You know? And for me, that tends not to be like the sort of show that I tend to tune into. I think there's reality television for that if you're interested. But you know, I think that for the first time this series, they actually did a good job of showing that. They're like, yeah, that is a really dumb plan.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's really moronic. And you know, seeing them go about it and go full into it, you know, and seeing how they react to their plans falling apart because they were idiotic, you know. They did a great job this episode when it seems like for the first 13 they were using expedition or were using I don't even know. Like
this felt like an episode. All the other episodes felt like they were just climbing as quickly as they could to the plot points.
Yeah.
Exactly. It was like, yes, we need to say this plot line here, this plot line here, this plot line here. I'm sure it'll work its way out.
Yeah, and none of it was ever enough to fill an episode. This felt like this was a whole episode. Like this was that battle and everything right around it.
All right. Well, on that note, is it time to say goodbye to all our loyal listeners?
I think it is.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, thank you so much for joining us this evening and watching us until the very end. We do really appreciate all your support, and hopefully we brought you some intelligent conversation, laughs tonight, and, you know, some tinctures and tonics too, hopefully. But it's your support that makes this worth it. So if you like this show, please like, share, subscribe, heart, do all those things. And if you hated this show, just make sure to like it twice because we are following up on this past episode. We're just going to continue sending that episode along with the double likes, and they'll fix things. They'll know that, oh, this episode was really the one that people wanted to watch. So our next episode will be next Tuesday, July 16th at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. So looking forward to seeing you then, where we will do episode 5. That's right. I've said it here first. So until next time, could you do it better? Bum, 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 bum. All right. Bye, everybody.